You just pressed what? The go
I
button?
I just pressed the go.
Uh-oh.
Oh wait, we're live.
What day is this?
It's Fry Fish Friday.
Fish fry Friday. Do you do things like that? Fish fry Friday? Do you do the fish on Friday thing?
No, but
Okay.
I know a friend that knows a friend that knows a friend.
Hmm. Well, I know a lot of people do. So so I didn't know if you did or not. But I know a lot of people that do that. Oh no, man, let's go this, and the soup of the day will be clam chowder because it's Fish Friday. And
No,
it's like, well, okay. I had
this
pizza,
was
so
this was Pizza Friday for you.
yeah.
For me, it was ground turkey Friday.
Yeah, okay, that that
I
that
like
that
turkey,
works. Yeah,
jab turkey.
yeah. There's not a thing wrong with turkey. You know,
You jab turkey.
like now, I've always associated turkey with wintertime though,
Oh no, it's an
because
all year round festival.
well, but it's really hard for me to get excited about putting a turkey in the oven for however many hours when it's 100 and something degrees outside. Now when it's 40 degrees outside, yeah, give me all the heat I can handle.
Do you remember? Do you remember when Mr. Bean got his head stuck inside a turkey's butt?
No, I didn't see that. I never saw the movie.
No, this is the actual series.
Oh, on the show? No, I didn't see that one.
You never saw when he invited a love interest to his house for some sort of
Hmm.
Christmas or holiday whatnot,
Hmm.
and he's setting things up. And just let's put it this way: it just goes the way it goes with Mr. Bean, and
Yeah.
every freaking bit, one after the, it just cascade. Everything with Mr. Bean cascades into this insane, like from bad to worse situation, and he always comes out like okay with it.
Yeah.
It's freaking hilarious. He ends up coming. he was he lost his. I think he lost his watch inside the because he was stuffing the turkey, and
Uh-huh.
so he starts coming in, getting in, and then the camera pans out because there's a knock or something, and it comes back to him, and his head is stuck in, and he can't pull it out, and he's walking around the room, and it's just hilarious as hell. It gets worse and worse, but whatever.
Well, it's funny you talked about we ought to acknowledge there's people out there, I think. Hi, welcome to the Trampled Underfoot podcast with your hosts and hosts for those of you who can speak. Your host,
With
Eloy
your heist.
Escojedo in Miami, and Mark Lindsay somewhere in the cold, wet, damp Pacific Northwest.
Um, yeah, it's Friday night, and even though they say the cool kids are going to the clubs and knocking the roof down, or what is it? What's the saying? The roof, the roof is on fire. Even though they're doing all that, that's not where the cool stuff is happening.
No,
Oh no, no, no.
and they're not the cool kids. They're the amateurs. That's
Yeah,
the amateur hour.
yeah.
They're the ones who haven't learned better yet.
I never liked the clubs.
I never was much for it either. I
I
just
felt
it just seemed to me to be a waste of time because you're not meeting real people at the clubs. You're meeting everybody there so made up in clown makeup and stuff and dressed up and this that it's phoniness on parade basically.
yeah. There's something I don't know, like you're. I guess there's something to carnivals and stuff like when we used to walk down Miami Beach
Hmm.
and it was packed. Some people would get in their car, like due to it being so packed, people would do the just like the movie that you like.
American Graffiti.
Yeah, they would do the same thing in down
Hmm.
Miami Beach, but with actually it also had neon lights and stuff, except it was more Art Deco as opposed
Hmm.
to 50s style. But um, if you couldn't find a parking space, which usually in order to get one you had to go all the way to the end and to walk that. I mean, and sometimes we do that, but you'd end up driving the car up and down the lane, and it's long enough and it's slow enough.
Hmm.
It's packed to the brim, and between the neons, the sand, the beach, the sidewalk, the palm trees, the people walking,
Hmm.
it was really a cool thing and stuff. I like that atmosphere. That's fine.
Hmm.
It's kind of like a walking through the Riviera or something like that. But when it comes to being inside a building and it's got techno music or something like that, and you can't hear people,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, and people are and like the dancing thing too.
Hmm.
But I don't know about you, but are you? So I've done dancing, but I don't find it. Nothing in me says, Eloy, tonight, tonight you're gonna trip the lights.
You're going to hit the dance
Nothing,
floor
nothing
and
in me ever. I mean, at home, if I'm listening to a rock song, I might do a little jiggle or this and that. But it's not like I'll say, I'm gonna do some moves. Like I have no
I like
internal
to
thing
move
that
it, move it.
says.
I like to move it, move it. Yeah.
I mean, do you?
No, I am. I can't dance. I don't know how. It doesn't look enjoyable to me. I mean, I'm just not. That's not me. You know.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I know that a lot of people, and there's an art to it.
Now
I
it
get that. I
now
get
it looks like it could be fun. It's just that's not me.
that. I'd rather be sitting at a two-dime gas station's latrine and forcing out three weeks ago freaking meals. No,
Yeah.
I don't, and I want everybody to picture that, please.
Yeah. Right. Get right
I
on it.
just I I don't no, I don't see it, but I understand that other people do dig it. But
Yeah.
I mean, but do you? No, seriously, it doesn't. It feels like an out of body when I have done it. It's like I'm doing it, and I'm like, this is stupid as hell. I am
Yeah.
such an
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll agree with you there. Now I'll tap my feet. I might even bounce a little bit with the rhythm, but that's about it.
Well, but see, that's and I'm with you on that. And you know what that's a sign of?
Mm,
See, I don't want to say it because I'm going to sound too back in the day.
hmm.
I'm not going to say it. That's a sign. Let's just call it. It leans towards what fellas usually sit on as far as the level of. But this whole parading around and tripping the lights and stuff. Yes, I understand that this, but to me, it screams of what's the word? You know the word I'm thinking. It screams of. Come on, say it, Mark. It screams of.
Mick Jagger.
That was a good alternative. That was
Okay.
a good
Well,
alternative.
what I just and maybe that was one of the reasons why I didn't like disco music was because it was the whole plastic scene that surrounded it. And to this day if I think of disco, I think plastic because men and women were dressed head to toe in polyester, so much fake crap going on with them. Uh, I would say the 70s in that era was a good time for short men because wearing lifts in your shoes was not an issue when you're wearing 4-inch platform heels. You know, when you've got 4-inch tall soles on the bottom of your shoes, another half inch of lifts inside the shoe didn't really make a difference. And if that wasn't enough, they had a foot tall afro, to kind of make it. And I'm talking white guys. So, I mean, the guy that sat next to me in math class in 11th grade, red hair and freckles with a fro the size of a beach ball. I kid you not.
I grew up.
So
Go ahead.
it was that fake attitude and that fake presentation along with the dancing that it never appealed to me at all.
Just to add to that, you got to remember, I was born in the mid 70s, and as I was growing up, I'd see on TV and in person.
Hmm.
I mean, I didn't think in terms of white this, and that, although you could, but I grew up seeing white folks with afros. You have to understand the
Hmm.
impact that that has on a kid
Yeah, it was a
because
style.
I thought it was normal, and it is for a lot. There are plenty. Well, I don't want to say plenty. I don't know where I'm pulling that one out of, but there is that does that combination does exist.
Hmm.
Um, but on average, like, hey, here's Mr. Snuffleupagus, and here's this guy with this do, and
Hmm.
you're growing up watching these things, and it's all a product of that you're talking about, that
Yeah,
era of tripping the lights in terms of disco. Um, so I grew up looking at that as normal.
yeah. Well, I mean, and why wouldn't you? You were born right at the beginning of it. You were born in 75. So I would imagine for the first 5 years anyway, that did appear normal because that was the style.
But you,
Well, it's kind of like me when I was growing up at around that age group, buzz cuts, flat tops, and crew cuts were the norm. A guy with hair as long as mine, and my hair is not long
you'd be
by
a
anybody.
Beatles guy right now.
Oh man, I
You'd be as weird as the Beatles were back then right now.
this was just not acceptable, with one exception. And that is if you got the dippity do or the Brill cream or whatever, and you combed it all back. Then having long hair on top was okay, and on the sides, you know. But down like this, no, it just wasn't done.
And also weirdness. It's all been weird because we had that,
Hmm.
but at some point, people started donning like leather and studs,
Hmm.
and the
Yeah, that came
hair.
along in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, they started going into the punk thing, but something else happened too, that along with this biker looking but yet painted hair,
Hmm.
weird, the
That
punk.
was 100% punk. Yeah.
Well, but along with that, then you had, what's the name for it when it's not progressive music, it's something else from that era as well. It was pop, but it was, there's a word for it that's used, that's an actual way of
Well,
describing what,
like who?
like like whip it, bum 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 bum, dun,
Oh,
dun.
that was New Wave.
New wave. Okay, so this new wave that it's kind of adjacent to the punk rock
Hmm.
really went freaking crazy with their get-ups and this and that,
Oh yeah.
where it was like there was a lot. So imagine a kid seeing all this stuff, and it just didn't match
No.
when you went to the grocery with mom and dad, or like you didn't, but on TV or the occasional whatnot in the mall. So it was like parallel things happening. So it was kind of weird. It had its weirdness to it, kind of like what you would have experienced growing
Oh
up,
yeah.
through, into the 60s and 70s, where you had all these different palettes
Hmm.
just thrown at you as a little kid, and you're like, I mean, maybe you didn't question it, or maybe you did, I don't know, but I didn't. I'm looking back questioning it. I accepted it as, well, this is Earth, you know.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like after the Beatles came along and got real popular 63, 64, when they were, I mean, just riding all five of the top five were the Beatles songs. Um, it's like somebody flipped the switch.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents did say, oh, hell no. But a lot of the kids started going, well, maybe long hair is cool. And maybe this crew cut or having white sidewalls around my ears wasn't cool. And maybe this longer hair is cool. And by 66, 67, you had guys with hair down past their shoulders, and that was completely uncool. heard of. Now, they were older teens, but longer hair in school started to become more and more and more of a norm. And it wasn't really looked at askance. I mean, a lot of parents still, my folks were still kind of whoa about it, but it was almost, I don't remember it being gradual at all. Now, then again, I was, 6, 7, 8 years old. So 6 months was, what, 1/8 of my life. So, it just, um, but I don't remember it being a long evolution. And then suddenly it was just like almost anything goes, you know, and women started dressing a lot more freely, a lot less conservatively. So did guys. But it went from the button up all the way up to the not quite the top button on your shirt down to a t shirt or a tank top, which I always associated with underwear because that's the only way I ever saw it worn. And it was called an undershirt. You wore a tank top, then you put on a shirt over that.
Yeah.
So that started becoming outerwear and thinner materials, women in peasant blouses and then in mini skirts, and women wearing a lot more denim than they ever had before. And then they started decorating it up and putting beads and embroidering and putting patches in places where they didn't even need a patch because it was different. And um, suddenly, I mean, I remember my mother buying. You remember? Did your mother ever buy iron-on patches to fix a hole in the knee of your jeans?
Not to fix them like I would want a patch.
Hmm.
Sometimes they were iron on, like a rock and roll patch, and she'd get me one, and we'd iron it on onto my
Hmm.
jacket.
Oh, well, this was for your pants. It was, oh,
I've seen them.
yeah, just a patch that went on your knee, and it would be
Yeah,
you would iron on to keep it in place, and then she'd come back and she'd sew it on so that it didn't just peel off,
yeah.
in 3 days. Well, people started embroidering on them and then embroidering them onto their pants, but they wouldn't just put them over their knees. If they put it over their knees at all, it'd be up in the, it'd be like a fourth pocket on the side or down the side of your legs or what have you. Just doing whatever to make it different. Rhinestones down the seam on the outside, down the hem, or stuff like that. And it just became more individualistic altogether. But it was, I hesitate to say that it was an immediate thing, but it seemed like it at the time. Of course, maybe I just didn't really pay attention, but what can I say?
There were a lot of evolutions. Jim mentioned that I have a Michael Jackson Thriller jacket, and I did. I've told the story, but like 80s, somewhere in there in the first half of the 80s, um, my my grandmother came home with a gift, and she handed me the box. My mom was there, and I opened it, and I pulled out this red zippered no sleeve pl- pleather plastic spectacle, and I could see this big smile on my grandmother's face because she had Michael Jackson was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, this is what the kids go for these days. Obviously, my grandson, he's hip to
Mm-hmm.
the notion of what's cool. And I was horrified
Yeah.
because even back then, yes, Michael Jackson, the music, but we were trading Ozzy Osbourne cassettes.
Yeah. You weren't into Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, I could appreciate that. Okay, beat it and whatnot. I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Like
and
I didn't
and
hate
and
it.
thank you for the gift. You can't. Yeah, thank you for the gift.
Yeah,
But
but I was so shocked.
yeah.
And then my birthday came. or it was for my birthday. Now I'm making the connection, and I have pictures of it with all my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm wearing this zipper thing and stuff. Just so, and I remember that I just wore, but there's something weird about zippers that unzip to nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no pocket behind them. They're just there because of the statement. There's something about wearing pleather, stretchy pleather, and red and
Mm-hmm.
no sleeves. There's something very Freddie Mercury about it. There's something very Michael Jackson. There's something very of that era about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad now just for the pictures that I
Mm-hmm.
have of them. But at the same time, it's totally outside my
Yeah, it
wagon.
wasn't you.
Yeah.
Your wheelhouse.
No,
J-
my wheelhouse. Yeah, no, I didn't have the glove. But you know what's funny enough? It happened again when something similar, when sure enough, someone came home. I forget who of my family, and there it was, the whole setup to be dressed up as what's that guy's name from Miami Vice?
Oh, Don Johnson.
The whole white leisure thing, the whole thing, but for a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness! But it was the cool thing at the time. So here, son, and it's like, oh no, and it
Yeah.
was like, because I really my intentions was even from that age was this rock and roll notion, and
Yeah.
what that entailed was rock and roll T-shirts and jeans.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it entailed. There was something to that, and well, what it was that I saw the older kids that I
Mm-hmm.
looked at as rock and roll freaking like
Yeah.
examples.
Black T-shirts and
Yeah,
yeah.
and tore up T-shirts too. Like they
Mm-hmm.
would shred their T-shirts and walk around,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "That's what I'm talking about." Meanwhile,
Yeah.
my family wanted me as the pop idol of the '80s dress
Mm-hmm.
up. Um, so it's funny how that works, but
Yeah.
as a consequence, my fashion has always been kind of like what you say, where it's
Yeah.
like,
Blue
uh,
jeans and T-shirts. See, the guys around my high school, they thought that that was what you needed to do to go meet girls. And in a lot of cases, they were right. And I'm not going to say they didn't meet girls because obviously they did. Obviously, they did. But what they didn't know was I wasn't going out to the club and meeting girls. I was going to the racetrack, to the stock car races. And I was meeting the girls who had to go with their parents but didn't want to be there. So I was there talking to the girls who would rather talk to me than watch the races. And everything worked out just fine. You know, I wanted to go see the races, but oh, that cute blonde doesn't give a damn about who's ahead. Let me go say hi. You want to go get a Coke? Sure. Dad, we're going to go get a Coke. Okay, fine. And then off we went.
it's hilarious because for a time, because a friend of mine would say, it's this is even bad to say, so I'm not gonna say it because
Mm-hmm.
it's self-serving and stuff. So I'll say it a different way without. But I always had friends coming over when we were young and stuff, just
Sure.
all around the Sweetwater. There were
Mm-hmm.
always the girls of Sweetwater
Mm-hmm.
coming over to hang out, just on the
Yeah.
level of hanging out.
Yeah.
They'd come over to my house,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd go right into my bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
um, and listen to the rock and roll, or they'd bring a cassette and such.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were friends.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm with you.
and we'd just hang out and stuff. I mean, there was always an attraction going on, and sometimes this and sometimes that, but like just
Mm-hmm.
broadly speaking, there was a thing about that, and there was the music, and sometimes they bring music that I wasn't it was of the era, but
Mm-hmm.
I was not particularly even, and they'd say, "Oh, this is cool stuff," and it usually leaned towards a more, let's call it gooey, sort of like um harpy on
Kind of a
the,
romantic side.
yeah, or more feelings based.
Hmm.
And I was like jigga 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 jigga. I was more into jigga 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 jigga.
Hmm.
But you have to sort of like, and so
Well, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
but
when I was in high school, you had to have Fleetwood Mac rumors, or you could forget any chance of ever getting a date with a girl. And we didn't buy that record because we liked it. Maybe it ended up we liked it, but we bought that record because the girls liked it, you know. And there were several like that. But
when I'll tell you this thing just because now we're saying, but I'll just say it. So in my high school opener, as all what would happen back in the day is that the buses would pick kids up.
mhm,
We had the elementary school, but we were in high school, and to go to high school, you had a couple of high schools. We
mhm,
ended up going to one that goes to the end of Dade County as far as we knew it, because the rest was open fields into the Everglades.
yeah.
Not anymore. Now it just keeps going with the city. And we'd all converge at the corners waiting for the bus. Was it like that for you?
Well, no, I walked. Well, I rode my bike to school my freshman year, and my sophomore year I got my driver's license. So I didn't ride a bus after junior high school. I didn't ride a bus after my seventh grade.
So we would do that. We'd stop at or
Mhm.
stand at whatever given location.
Yeah, the bus stop. Yeah.
And the one summer going into the school year, I'll say it like this. I mean, I was a kid, so I had two girlfriend options of a possible direction for me to go in.
Hmm.
And they both lived close to me,
Hmm.
like one block and then the next and stuff. And they were both gorgeous,
Hmm.
but gorgeous, gorgeous. Um, one of them was a Nicaraguan girl,
Hmm.
just out of hand, and the other one was a Cuban girl, a spectacular little button of a girl, and they were both signaling, kid
Hmm.
romantic, whatnot
Yeah.
of the time. And I found myself as a kid not knowing the greater things of, what I'm saying. You're just
Yeah.
like, wow, I have to make a decision here. And I found it because I had never had to make a decision like that, but
Hmm.
I knew that things could go in two directions.
Yeah.
And there's a fork in the road going on here. And they were both showing interest, and they were both catfighting.
Oh, so they weren't really friends with each other.
Oh no.
Okay. Well, that makes it easier, believe it or not.
Well, um, you can, I, I don't even know how to unpack this, but I'll just say it's nothing. But I'm remembering it as we're talking.
Hmm.
They both showed absolute interest,
Hmm.
and I didn't think uh, great luck for me. I'm thinking now,
Hmm.
looking back, but at the time it was just it is what it is. Oh, and so I went with the Cuban girl,
Hmm.
and the other girl was disappointed.
Okay.
And the next thing I knew, she had gone and chosen another dude
Hmm.
that had a motorcycle or something like that, and so
Yeah.
they'd always be on their motorcycle, and I was with my. But that's as quick as the decisions were made. It was just an ordering of things without much thought or much look into the future. None of that. It was just, this is
Hmm.
okay. I'm with you, and she's with me, and that one's with that one, and this and that, and that's how high school type things.
Yeah.
And I remember, just as to end it, I remember that the one that I ended up with made it very clear of how her dislike for her and her the other one and her friends,
Yeah.
like she she basically, and I had never seen, for a kid, a boy,
Hmm.
I had never experienced such decisive dislike for other
Oh yeah.
people based on what, and that came from this girl.
Hmm.
And it's probably not, I'm going to be a little bit distant from this, it's probably not just that girl, it's probably a lot of girls. um
It's I have a theory that the reason a lot of things haven't happened is because basically women hate each other.
well,
All women secretly hate one another, and that's just all there is.
dude, she made it evident, and I never had that, I never felt that strongly one way or the other towards other people based on other, I mean, other than there's some sort of offense.
Hmm.
But besides that, I was kind of like, so I was like, wow. And this is
Hmm.
a young girl at the time.
Doesn't matter.
Grow,
Mothers don't even have to teach their daughters about this. It's in their DNA.
thinking about it now, it was really
Hmm.
an amazing thing.
Hmm.
And she was, boy, she was very decisive.
Oh yeah.
She even took my yearbook,
Hmm.
found the pages of where all the suspects were,
Hmm.
and drew mustaches and
She defiled the yearbook to show her displeasure. Oh man.
and she wrote commentary, because you know how back in the day you would take the yearbook and have everybody sign it
Yeah.
with a little saying or whatnot. And so all my friends and whatnot, well, she went and looked for those that they signed, and
Mhm.
she wrote an appended.
So she added footnotes.
She added a footnote, and it was a one word that starts with a B, to all
Uh-huh.
to all of them.
That is hilarious. Oh my god. Oh man. Yeah, that was a good lesson to learn early on. I'm here to tell you. I mean,
Well,
it could have been worse, man. I mean, you could have found that out on your like your fourth anniversary or something. So, consider it a bullet dodged.
it was
So,
pretty freaking crazy, dude. But yeah,
uh-huh. I get it. Well, the thing about what I was laughing about so much when you were talking about having just female friends that were part of the group that you hung out with was I had a similar thing going. One girl lived about 5 houses down from me, and another girl was a friend of mine's sister, and she tended to want to come hang out with the other girl. And then they had two other female friends in common. So here I am. My father worked graveyard, so we couldn't go to my room. We were out in my garage with the garage door open, listening to music out there and just talking and BSing and smoking and doing whatever it is teenagers do when they're all hanging out. So there'd be like 3 guys and 4 girls over there. And that was just common. Would I have dated any of them? Yeah, probably. But, it's the classic thing where the girl goes, well, I think of you as more like a brother. It was kind of that way too.
yeah.
You know, it was kind of a reciprocal thing. Um, if I didn't know them in the way that I knew them, would I have dated them individually? Oh, heck yes, in a hot second. But that wasn't on my mind, you know. And what I started laughing about was when we moved from California back up to Oregon, a lot of my family came down, my grandparents came down, my aunt and uncle came down. We loaded up trucks and trailers and cars and everything that would fit into all these vehicles. We made one trip to move it all back up to Oregon. Well, my aunt and uncle were there, and like 2 nights before we left, um, I was going to go to the movies with one of these female friends, and she had younger twin sisters. Now, I had dated one for a little while, but just like a couple of months, and then we just kind of parted ways, friendly on friendly terms. We just basically lived too far apart to really make anything kind of work. But so here I am going to the drive-in movies with 3 girls, and my uncle was just absolutely beside himself. You are what? Yeah, I'm taking Bernadette, Renee, and Renat to the movies. You're going out with three girls. Yeah,
Jackpot.
you're really going out with three girls. Yes. Do these girls know each other? Oh, yeah, they're sisters. Renee and Renat were twins, and they did all the typical twin stuff. We're there. Renee had to go into the bathroom. We're there at the movies. I'm up front. Bernadette's sitting next to me, and her sisters are in the back seat. Renee went to the bathroom. She all of a sudden comes flying back. She goes, "Come on, there's a dude in the snack bar. We got to do the thing." And they took off. And I looked at Bernadette. I said, "What are they doing?" "Oh, they're going to play the twin game. They're going to swap back and forth talking to this guy. One will go in and talk to him and he'll leave, and then the twin will come back in and talk to him some more, and then they'll go back and forth." They always wore matching outfits, so they just did that for fun to
Yeah.
mess with people. And then he come walking out, and they're both standing there, and then it's like, oh shit. But Uncle Bob was just absolutely apoplectic. You're going out with three girls. You're really going to go out with three girls? Yeah. Damn, I don't expect you home before midnight. It's not like that, Uncle Bob. We're friends.
Well, I
Going out
mean,
with three girls, I don't believe that. Yeah, he just couldn't get over that. And he talked about, we moved back up to Oregon. He didn't quit talking about that for 6 months.
well, it's an accomplishment, I tell you.
Yeah, not really. you know, I mean, think about it. If you went, it was this kind of a thing. If you went to a movie with your aunt and two female cousins, would anybody think anything of it? Because that's more or less the way we kind of thought of one another.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You know.
it's just amongst friends and stuff. But the
Mhm,
twin thing
mhm,
is interesting because when I was working out in the Everglades, there was this friend or this
mhm,
coworker slash friend, and he had a certain look about him.
mhm,
He had long hair and stuff. He always, we all
mhm,
wore a certain uniform and stuff. But every morning I'd come in, he'd be there, we'd chat a little bit and whatnot, this and that. And that went on for weeks and stuff. And then one day I walk in and there he is cooking. And I say, "Hey, dude, what's going on?" And he turns around. He says, "Hey, what's going on?" And I looked at his face and there was something, it was him,
mhm.
but there was
But it
something,
wasn't.
something was, and I felt a Twilight Zone moment because it didn't cross my mind that he was a twin,
Mhm.
and this twin didn't offer it up, but he could tell.
Yeah,
They enjoy this kind of thing probably,
yeah,
but he could tell that I was probably thinking that he was his brother,
yeah.
and he didn't say anything about it. So he probably got a little personal thrill, and I looked at him. And it almost looked. You know what I felt that he, my friend went evil. This is the evil version because
The Exorcist.
there was a slight shift. Like I could tell
Mhm,
that it wasn't, something was wrong.
mhm,
How does that, because it's not 100%. It's similar, as a lot similar from one person to the other,
mhm,
but there's always certain little whatnots
mhm.
that shift it. You know what I'm saying? That you
Yes.
can, yeah,
Well, Renee and Renat were very similar in that regard. There was enough of a difference. They were identical twins, but there was enough of a difference between them that I could always tell who was who. I'd walk in, they'd be standing next to one another, and I'd walk up, put my arm around Renee, and say, "What's up?" And Renat would shake her head and walk off, just because I knew one from the other. I never told them why. And that was because Renee and they trimmed their eyebrows just slightly differently. And Renat's kind of curled. Now, I won't say curled up at the end, but they kind of went straight at the end, and Renee's just flowed straight down. That was the only way I could tell them apart. There were other little differences, but I'd be hard pressed to tell you exactly what they were. But from the back, you couldn't tell one from the other. They wore their hair the same, they were the same height, same build, same everything. But the minute they turned around, I knew exactly which one was which. The
talking about
differences
look.
were subtle, but they love to do that. These two did. They loved to do that kind of thing. They would, and they did it on purpose. And they would go. One would come back and get the other so that they could do it. You know.
I mean, you might as well, if you got it, you might as well.
Yeah,
Um,
that was entertainment for them.
well, yeah, it freaks people out or it leaves them confused.
Hmm.
Like I was with that situation. But talking about looks, you know that. So even though I'm in Miami and we have the Cuban community here, people look very different within that community because it's an island where
Yeah.
people mixed
Hmm.
or there's different combinations. There's a lot of certain but even within that, there's variation and whatnot.
Sure.
Um, and I myself have a lot of different things coming in from me, from different directions. Uh, but I've looked at Cantabria, at the villages where my
Hmm.
ancestors in the 1800s and past were from,
Hmm.
and I looked at the people that are living there now,
Hmm.
and I'll look at the kids, the guys, and the girls too, and everybody and stuff, and there's something familiar about them,
Yeah.
and many of them look, or I look, or they look like me,
Hmm.
you know, and even though I'm not purely of that region
Hmm.
going back in time, because in a
But
sense,
there's a lot of influence.
there's a direct paternal influence,
Yeah.
and there's a doubling down since I have many of my ancestors that were actually
Hmm.
within the family, married within the family. So who knows
Yeah.
what that brought down the pike and stuff, to seal that deal on that in that
Yeah.
direction. But there's something very familiar physically, but in terms of when I'm looking at other like Cuban derived, I I feel a slight or a significant distance. It's
Hmm.
a funny thing to say. I've it's just an observation. Um, but I find it curious to see that
Hmm.
out of context of what I'm used to.
Yeah.
So what I'm used to is the context of Miami,
Hmm.
here. But to see a village
Yeah.
built out of stones from the 1600s back,
Yeah.
and kids are running around, and I look at them and I'm like, well, crap, I could fit right in between those two playing soccer.
Hmm.
Usually, like with the photos that I've looked at, I could you could place me right in. I probably wouldn't want to play soccer, but that's not the point. And it's kind of a strange thing. Like out of the roll of the dice, I would have just as well been born right over. I mean, it didn't happen
Yeah.
that way, but I would have been. So it's kind of a weird thing to see and to ponder these. Well, what
Yeah.
if this and that? Um, yeah,
Well, so what you got to do now, you know what you have to do. You have to get hot and heavy into AI and put yourself into some of those pictures.
oh, good. That's a good. That was a good segue into that. Um, yeah, I sent you the that
Well, that
link.
that wasn't meant to be a segue. That was a genuine thing. Wouldn't that be fun to kind of put yourself into some of those pictures? Because, like, if you know, it, I've got some pictures in books of wagon trains and Conestoga wagons and stuff like that. And I've often thought about what did it look like if I took one of my pictures when I was a kid and put me in that picture. You know what?
Yeah, have you
That
seen
kind
those
of a thing. You know.
Have you seen those pictures where like I'll give you an example. There's one where, and I don't know if you saw this one. I don't know if you guys out there saw this one. It's pretty freaking cool. But when the Beatles came to play, I think it was Ed's, or maybe I think it was Ed Sullivan, or one time they came to the United States.
Mhm.
They were in their limos,
Mhm.
and a bunch of teenagers
Mhm.
had gotten tickets or something or other, and were driving down the highway. All of them stuffed in that their vehicle, headed towards the concert. And sure enough, there's a limo right next to them, and it's the freaking Beatles. And Ringo Starr took a picture of them, and they're all in the car doing whatever they're doing. And they hunted those people down like decades later.
Mhm.
And sure enough, they found them in the snow, and they took another photo at their age current
Mhm.
in the same position as the photo that Ringo Starr had taken back in the 60s,
That's
dude.
fun. That's fun. I
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I like that kind. I'm gonna be up. I'll be upfront and honest right here, right now. That kind of thing is what the internet was made for.
It's so trippy.
Yeah.
And they all look great. They're
Hmm.
older people, obviously. Like
Yeah.
they're mature adults. Um, but they side by side it, and
Hmm.
it was Ringo Starr's it's such a freaking awesome.
Yeah. I
So
love that.
anyways, so like what I was gonna say is that stuff like that where like people like maybe the kids and then dad was standing there by the Christmas tree, and so that they get the idea of doing it like 50 years later, and like they're doing that, and now they're adults, or maybe mom was holding the kid some and now he's like a big grown adult, and they do. You've seen those, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, those are great.
I'm gonna have to look for it, and it may take some detective work. So, folks out in the chat, bear with me. There was a video a few years back. This guy who's a an amateur filmmaker. He came across a VHS tape of him at like age 10, and he's at age 10. He's asking his older self questions. What do we do for a living now? What are we doing with this? And this video is this older guy. He's got a cigar and he's got a drink in his hand in an old fashioned glass with a couple of ice cubes. And he's directly answering those questions. And it'll cut to the younger guy, and you can tell it's him. It's like, he's age 10, and here he's age 35 or 38 or something
That's
like that.
crazy.
And he's like, well, hi, older David. So what did we end up doing with our lives? And he'll sit and he answers the question. And
That's
it's
crazy.
almost like they're having a conversation, almost like an interview. And there are times of humor, as a 10-year-old kid, he's like, oh, dude, look at what I got. I got one of these right here. And you do this and you do that. And the guy reaches over and he goes, yeah, I know. I still got it. And,
He planned
stuff
that.
like that. It- he I don't know. I can't say that he planned it, but he did come across it and decided he was going to answer it. And then he put it up on his YouTube channel and it went viral. But this has been about 7, 8, 9 years ago. So I'm going to have to try to find it. And if I do find it,
Yeah,
I'll put it up on our Trampled Underfoot podcast Facebook page.
that is trippy
It
as
was
hell.
really good and it was really fun. But yeah, to me, that's the kind of thing that the internet was made for. You know, um, I saw an interview. Do you remember the album cover for Woodstock, where you had the man and the woman kind of wrapped in a quilt, hugging each other, with a big old huge crowd behind them?
Mhm.
They found both of those people, brought them together. They recreated the hug and just basically interviewed them and talked to them about it. That was a pretty cool thing too. But I dig that kind of thing. I really enjoy that kind of thing.
It's it's a trippy thing what is possible. And just to go into the since we're on this with
Mhm.
the AI, The We talked about AI months ago, and we've touched on it ever since on occasion. Um, it's not going away anytime soon.
No.
The ramifications, where you and I, all of us here, are actually at the precipice of a entertainment and all sorts of changes due to AI. It is what it seems, in that the possibilities we can't even fathom right now.
Right.
Because when I sent you that link to those photos, um, well, I don't know how much which ones did you see? Because you said something like some of them I liked and others I didn't. What?
Um, uh, some of some of them I liked. There were a couple of them that made me mad. Just like, no, you don't mess with that. Some of them were ridiculous. It was for fun, and I get it. But one of them I thought was funner than hell, and I think they should do it. Now, to preface this, what this guy does is he takes pop culture things and he basically explodes them, and he puts different people cast as these characters in these movies.
Yeah.
Like he put one of them that I thought was just dumb was one of the Batman movies. He had Mark Hamill as Robin and Carrie Fisher as Batgirl. I thought that was just dumb. I really did. I did not like that. That's just one of those, oh no, don't do that, please. But one of them I thought was absolutely hilarious was the Muppet X-Men. I thought that was hilarious. The animal is Wolverine with the spiky hand. I thought that was hilarious. And I'm like, oh, you got to do this.
What did you think of the quality of the pictures?
The quality of the pictures was absolutely fabulous.
It's pretty crazy, right? How, like, almost better than real life they
Mm-hmm.
are.
Yeah. Let me bring one up here. This one I thought was funnier than hell. And you got to admit, the guy does a great job with it. And
That's great.
Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson as Superman. Now, he did a fabulous job with it. That looks real as hell. But I
It's
thought
really
that was
well done.
hilarious. I'm like, no, 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 that can't happen. But it's
Actually, it's
funny.
believable.
It is believable. You would think Rowan Atkinson had played Superman at some point. I thought that was great.
And the thing is about that
Hmm.
is that, well, keep going, because this one's also a freaking bad to the bone. Look at the
And
background blurred out as well.
and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a cultural infidel, so I don't know about who about half of these people are. Like I don't know who this is.
I don't know who that is either.
You know. Um. So some of this, I mean, it looks good. Uh, Christopher Reeves. I mean, obviously he did do Superman, but not in this iteration. He had passed on by then. But see, that's believable. I could imagine Christopher Reeve in that role. You know. Um, I don't know. I don't know. No, just no. Homer as He Man? Come on. I get it. It's fun, but what the heck? That one I think is that's a satire. How Deadpool is carrying Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, there's a lot of people who think that that's the truth. But if we get back into some of these others, I mean, in the MCU, Clint Eastwood as Nick Fury, I could
Yeah, that would be
actually,
cool.
I could actually see that, but no, Samuel L. Jackson is Nick Fury, and that's it. You know, to me anyway, he just plays that role so well. But I wouldn't, but I couldn't get mad at that. You know, there's a couple of others up here. This one just cheesed me off. Burt Reynolds as Iron Man? No.
I could see it. He looks the part. That's actually um more closer to what the comic book version of Stark.
Uh huh.
It's closer version, especially
Um,
80s Stark.
I have a very unpopular opinion when it comes to Burt Reynolds. The guy made a few good movies. The original Longest Yard was a good movie. That was a real good movie. Deliverance, real good movie. But he made some real trash too. You know, he's got like a, I don't know, a 4-20 record as far as good versus bad movies. And I think this would have been a mistake. I think this would have been a mistake. Just my opinion, you know. Um, Bill Murray as Ant Man. I don't know. I don't know.
The way I think about this, like with the judgments that you're making, because you're judging in comparison and stuff. Um, so we'll pick one while I say my
Okay.
bit as an example
Okay.
of what I'm going to say.
Paul
Um,
Paul Newman as Batman.
okay, so I guess this one is as good as any. So this is my opinion as towards what you're saying. Um,
Mhm.
as opposed to what how you're looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, or what pops into my brain is, and especially this is why I sent you the, or this is
Mhm.
one of the reasons why I sent you the thing, is that the only reason we can make those judgment calls now is because it's after the fact. So
Right.
if a Paul Newman originally did play Batman, the reality for people around the world would be that Paul Newman is Batman and anything else. So what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that it's all dependent on what we are familiar with from the get go, as opposed to you see what I'm saying. So like
I do.
it would be a clash after the fact because we have something already referenced in our minds.
Yes.
But what's cool about this is that it kind of adds that what if quality.
Yes.
What if?
And I do agree. I do agree that there is a lot of value in that. But I also am looking at it from a nostalgic point of reference, in that a lot of what made these characters, and now if we look at this, if we just take this at face value, this is the 1960s TV Batman.
Yeah.
Okay. The little spurs on the gloves there, and the bat shaped cowl and everything, and the, I don't know, looks like gray velour with a zipper up the front. That is 60s Batman. A part of what made that 60s Batman was the person playing the character, their mannerisms, their voices, all of that stuff, the way they acted.
But only in retrospect.
Only in retrospect, and that's exactly what I meant. That's what I'm talking about. That coming at this from the angle of nostalgia. That I couldn't see anybody else playing Batman at the time. Now, if they'd have done a switch between, well, like remember Bewitched, you had two different Darrens. Dick
Yeah,
York did a couple years, he was gone, and then Dick Sargent took over for a few years, and then the series ended.
yeah, it was a bit rough to see that change.
It was a bit rough to see that change. You're right, but after about a season and a half, people didn't care anymore. The topic just dropped. This is Darren now. So I think if that would have been done, if Adam West had replaced Paul Newman or Paul Newman replaced Adam West, then I think a case could be made. But going back and looking at it from in a nostalgia perspective, I don't think the character of Batman, the character of Batman would have not been the same as Adam West's Batman at all. Now, you do make a valid point in that if we grew up with Paul Newman as Batman, that would be all we ever knew. And somebody, Adam West, what the hell's an Adam West? Why would we want him as Batman? We got Paul Newman.
Yeah, our reference point would be totally out of whack in terms
Right.
of even considering
Mm-hmm.
Adam West in this alternate thing.
Right. Well,
But
and that's a lot of what he was trying to do with this. Like if you look here at some of these other, um, this is,
John
a
Luke,
younger Patrick Stewart as Captain Picard. You know,
I kind of
he's,
like that retro
you know,
with the. I mean, it would have been cool if they would have used the same old suits, in my opinion.
right. Yeah.
I think they did it right the first time
Yeah.
with the suits. I kind of dig the '60s suits.
This is, I think, the next generation. But
No, but the suits are 1960s.
I think these are the '80s versions.
No, the people are the '80s, but
Well,
the
because
suits.
I don't see a red shirt amongst them. But anyway, yeah, okay.
I might be. I don't. Were you a big Star Trek guy?
I saw like 2 complete episodes.
Okay, so I'm telling you, these are '60s uniforms
Hmm.
on 1980s next generation actors.
Yeah, okay.
So it's kind of like, see, that's cool,
Leonard Nimoy is Mr. Freeze. See, now I have no real frame of reference with Mr. Freeze. Okay.
but it looks cool.
Hmm.
It really
Okay.
does. It looks like some trippy sci-fi
Yeah.
early comic book.
Now he does look goofy, and I don't remember the character that played Mr. Freeze in the TV Batman in the '60s, but I
Yeah,
know he had a much rounder face. I
I
don't
can't
remember
recall.
the name of the actor who portrayed him, but and this just looks kind of goofy, like it doesn't fit. But that's just me. Andre the Giant as Darkseid. Mm, okay, yeah, okay. Robert De Niro as the Penguin. See, to me that looks out of place because part of the character of the Penguin was his height or the lack thereof, and a bit of disfigurement. You know,
Yeah,
he just looks like an English gentleman heading off to the club.
but
You
but
know.
but the judgment the judgment of that continues where you're comparing it to.
Well, I'm also comparing it to what the way it was written in the comics that I remember.
It's kind of like my like so the band U2.
Hmm.
Um, it's impossible to rid ourselves of the image of U2, the band,
Hmm.
from the name. But if we could do that, you would realize that the name for a band U2,
Hmm.
the context, if you could separate the band and its music from the wording,
Hmm.
um, it's just a two-letter frickin' or one letter, one number frickin' thing that has
Uh-huh.
no context. What gives it the context, like you were suggesting, is the actors that play it and what this and that.
Right.
But if we never knew the band as U2 and they were called
Right.
Sponge,
Yeah.
we'd be people around the world would be, man, that Sponge song, yeah,
Mhm.
man, Sponge.
Mhm.
So everything is kind of relative to. So
Yes.
it's this concept of removing um, the timeline that we're aware of,
Right.
and then throwing this craziness at us.
Well, it's also like you say, it's a lot of what if. Now, this I can see. This I think would fit Goldie Hawn as Harley Quinn. You know, I could see that. And I think Goldie Hawn could do something with it. I don't think that would be bad casting. But we have the what if picture, and that's all we've got.
And the picture looks good.
Yeah, it does. And it looks like she's in that makeup. It looks like she's in that outfit. So the guy who's doing this is doing some really good stuff.
This is
But
all AI.
yeah, this is 100% AI. And here was another one that I thought Al Pacino as Two Face. Okay, that could work. That could work. Willem Dafoe was the Joker. That would work. I think Willem could pull that off. I think he
Yeah,
could
that
do it.
that does fit closer to.
Hmm. Yeah. Michael Douglas as the Green Arrow, maybe. I don't really have an opinion on that. Yes or no.
Yeah,
Nichelle Nichols as Catwoman. I think she could do it.
yeah,
Gene Wilder as the Riddler. No, it just
he's
doesn't fit.
yeah he
Nice.
seems too nice. Yeah, he seems like, and you know what it is? It's simply his face.
Uh huh.
His face demonstrates or puts forth this thing of a good guy, of a
Yeah.
nice guy, of a pleasant guy, of a he has that face.
If this guy get rid of the Riddler outfit and just put him in a green jacket, if this guy knocked on your door and said he was from FedEx and was there to pick up the package, you'd give it to him.
Yeah.
You would not question it.
Yeah, he's just got that about him.
Mhm.
So
And William Shatner as Aquaman. I don't know.
all I can think of is his pauses and his acting when he
Yeah.
says, "Spock, come here." You know.
Well, that you could put that down to him having gills.
But
So
this
you
would
know.
be a closer comic book version
Hmm.
as opposed to what we see now on DC
Yeah.
or whatever this is. Is this Marvel?
No,
Aquaman
this
is
is DC. You're not a fan of Jason Momoa?
no, he doesn't. It makes no difference. I'm just saying that he's not the comic book version of
Yeah.
Aquaman.
Okay. Okay,
This
I can
is
see that. I
with
can
the
see that.
blonde hair like that.
Yeah,
This would be.
I can see that. There were a few others. And a lot of these are just what ifs, you know, Kareem Abdul Jabbar as the Martian Manhunter. Well, he's got the
Excellent.
build for sure. I mean, he's tall enough. He's like what, 7 foot, something like that. And he shaved his head most of his career.
Yeah.
So David Cassidy as the Flash. Now you're getting silly. Now
As
you're
long
getting
as he sings some songs while he's
yeah. um, and now we have Frank Sinatra, Jack Nicholson, uh, Tom. He was one of the Tom Baker, one of the Doctor Who's, and Gene Wilder as the Joker. I don't think any of them can pull it off.
I could see Brando.
Maybe Jack Nicholson.
Well, I could see Brando. Um, but he's more of a laid back than a loony.
Hmm.
Like the Joker usually has this sort of like schizoid,
Hmm.
frenzied outburst here and there.
Yeah.
The best Joker, in my opinion, was Joaquin Phoenix
Okay.
by leaps and what is it? Leaps and
So you were not on the Heath Ledger bandwagon.
no, it was fine. But if you've not seen the Joker movie,
Mhm.
like it's called Joker,
Yeah.
um, Joaquin Phoenix just he's just it's just it's an amazing movie in terms of his acting. It's just brilliant.
Hmm.
You have to see it. It's kind of
Okay.
depressing, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not buying it. Again, I'm not
No,
buying it.
he even looks like a good guy there.
Yeah. Maybe, with that kind of aged look and the makeup and stuff like that, maybe a mortician, but not, you know,
At
yeah.
worst, I can't even say. There's something about this guy that you can't, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Lawrence Fishburne as Cyborg, I can see that.
Yeah,
That I can see.
that was a crazy character in the comic books.
Yep.
The Teen Titans. I used to love that comic book.
David Niven as Sinestro. I don't know enough about this character to say yes, no, or maybe.
Me neither.
So let's see here. Harrison Ford is the Green Lantern.
I could see it.
Maybe, maybe a somewhere
He,
between Han Solo and Indiana Jones age Harrison Ford, somewhere in there. Yeah.
he's got the look that we'd see in the comic books.
Hmm.
I mean, it does match as far as just the appearance,
Hmm.
as far as that.
Yeah. Okay. And then Henry Cavill is Cyclops. I don't know enough about the Cyclops character, but
Yeah,
he
that's a
fits the
badass
suit.
picture. Yeah, they did good with that suit, though.
Henry Cavill is actually kind of a funny guy just in life if you watch him in interviews and things like that. Tom Baker, one of the Doctor Who's, I don't know enough about him, um, but I have seen a couple of the episodes where he was Doctor Who, and I don't think it's good casting.
It was my favorite Doctor Who.
Really, Tom Baker was.
I couldn't stand. I've tried watching all the others,
Hmm.
and I just can't get into it. But this one, for some reason, this guy's. It's what I grew up watching. That's what they
Yeah,
had on PBS on repeat. So
yeah.
I grew up watching him. I mean, maybe it was live at the time, like it
Uh-huh.
was active at the time. I don't know.
It may have been that was in the well, that was in the
80s,
80s, right?
I
Well,
think.
they were probably a couple years old by the time they came here to PBS, so I think he was more 70s, but I could be wrong there. And like I said, I only saw a couple of them, but a friend of mine about this time was his parents came from England, and he was born in America. His sister was born in England. His mom and dad obviously were born in England, and so he grew up on Doctor Who, and he just loved it all. And whenever Doctor Who and the dialects was coming on TV, he was right there. So, I saw a couple of episodes hanging out with him, but that's about it. So, um, then you get into this. This is really oh, come on. Don't tell me you didn't do any more pictures of it. Where you had Warren Beatty as Clark Kent and Superman, Sally Field as Lois Lane, Kate Jackson as Wonder Woman, Farrah Fawcett as Supergirl, and Telly Savalas as Lex Luthor. Now,
I could
Telly
see that.
Savalas would have made an excellent Lex
I,
Luthor.
I could definitely see that. But then again, reference points we're familiar with. He's got that chrome dome, um, that shiny head.
Uh-huh.
Um, so the association is clear.
But Telly Savalas was one of those guys where one of those rare actors where he could play the good guy just as well as he could play the bad guy. And he was believable in both parts.
Do you remember he always had a lollipop because he was trying to
Yeah, on
quit smoking?
Kojak. On Kojak, yeah.
Dude, growing up watching that on TV,
Hmm.
was that in the 80s or 70s?
Both. I think it was a crossover from late 70s into the 80s.
Okay, because I grew up watching that.
Well, it was in syndication for quite a while.
Well, I mean, I grew up watching it on TV,
Mhm.
and the lollipop bit,
Mhm.
I knew it was because he wasn't didn't want to smoke, but I couldn't reference that because I
Yeah.
had no. I just found it something memorable because
Mhm.
I liked lollipops,
Yeah.
So, but those little type of things are weird things when you're learning about the world around you.
Yeah.
Here's this guy from back in the day trying to quit smoking.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, I do think Sally Field would have made a good Lois Lane.
yeah.
Farrah and Kate, I don't know. Warren Beatty, no. Just me, you know. But
Yeah,
I think Telly Savalas would have made a brilliant Lex Luthor. Let me find some more here because he didn't carry on with that thought. Um, we'll scroll down here a little bit. Um, Now, Chuck Norris as the Winter Soldier, I can see that.
I don't even know who the Winter Soldier is.
You would have to really get seriously into the MCU because this was after the original movies, and well, yeah, you would have to get really seriously into the MCU. David Bowie is Vision.
Funny enough, I could see it.
I can kind of see it. I think he could do it. And Bowie was a better actor than people give him credit for.
You let me just don't leave this picture here for half a second. Um, a few years ago,
Mhm.
Marvel Online produced some movies for Marvel Online, and one of them was called WandaVision.
Yeah,
Did you ever happen to see it?
no, I didn't.
It was very surreal, but I
Mhm.
mean, in a way that's mind bending.
Mhm.
Um, so the Vision was this robot,
Yeah.
and Wanda was this witch,
Mhm.
human. And in this Marvel series, Wanda is having a dream about her life with her husband and children. They have babies and stuff, and it goes through different eras of American life,
Uh-huh.
from back in the 60s into the 70s and so on. And it's all in the context of she's having a dream, but you don't know it's a dream as you're watching the whole series.
Uh-huh.
And the I guess the props and the building and the everything is done so that it's a normal life of these people, like, I don't know, the Partridge Family, but in the
Yeah.
context of these Marvel characters.
Mhm.
And then things start to unravel, and it's really like you're visiting inside her brain of a life that she wanted to have, but in reality, Vision is dead, and all sorts of trouble are going. And so the whole series was just one of the trippiest things, if you could,
Yeah.
if you would consider, if you enjoyed the Marvel universe, this particular series was so surreal.
Now,
I think it's one of their best creations
I
thus far.
have to say that I have not gone into the MCU very deep at all. I have not sat down and watched an entire movie. The closest I have come is Linda is madly in love with Guardians of the Galaxy. She likes that series. She has not yet seen number three because she wouldn't understand it, and she knows this. She wouldn't understand it if she hadn't seen the last three movies in the Avengers series, because so many things happen during that are included in number three. It wouldn't make sense to her. So she's about ready to take a deep dive into the MCU, starting with Iron Man. Just haven't got there yet.
They've gone crazy though. There's so much happening that I don't
Yeah,
even. I can't even. It's way too frantic.
yeah, I agree. Vincent Price as Doctor Strange, I could see that in a 1950s or 1960s, possibly even a 70s time frame. But after that, I don't think so. But I think he had that look and he had that way about him. He could have pulled off Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah.
So, um, question marks as the Red Skull. Okay, all right. Raquel Welch as the Black Widow? No, I don't think so.
It sure does work.
It works for the costume and that's it. Sidney Poitier as the Black Panther?
I mean, if you want good
I don't know.
dialogue,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see Sidney Poitier as an action hero.
I mean, you know,
And that's just a big heavy nope. Arnold Schwarzenegger as Thor? No, I don't see it.
I mean, he's got the physicality,
Mm-hmm.
but the dialogue bit would be a bit, not on spot.
Yeah, I don't think so. Michael J. Fox as Spider Man, maybe in his younger days, pre Back to the Future, but I think that's only because Tom Holland did it so well.
No, I could see this.
Yeah,
Um,
like
Spider-Man was meant to be a
a
kid.
young, yeah, and I agree with that. And I think, like I said, about his TV sitcom days before he did Back to the Future, I think he could have done it. I think he could have been a good Spider Man. But I think part of my reason for saying that is because I have seen the Tom Holland Spider Man, and there's a lot of similarity there, just in looks, just in physical appearance.
You
There's a
know the
lot of
names more than
similarity.
I do.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who the Holland is.
The last two or three Spider Man movies, it's been him.
Oh, okay.
So, so Robert Redford is Captain America. No, I don't see it. I
I
don't.
could see it if it's a younger Redford. I could see it. Although he's not.
He'd really have to hit the gym hard for
Well, they can
like,
fix that in post.
yeah, well, they can now, but I don't see it. I really don't. Bruce Lee as Shang-Chi. Well, everything Bruce Lee did was pretty badass. So, you know, what can you
Well,
say?
how about Bruce Lee as Captain America?
He'd have to hit the gym as well. He was muscular, but he's not a big, imposing guy. But I think, I don't know, it might be worth it. It might be worth checking out.
See, this is a good example right here. Imagine if we
Mhm.
never knew Captain America as Captain America. Instead, we knew him as Bruce Lee, played by Bruce Lee since the
Mhm.
beginning. Even though all the ancestry and everything is out of whack for us knowing that now, but if we grew up with something so drastic as what I'm suggesting,
Mhm.
anything else would be that same reaction like, no, this doesn't work and stuff because we already have the built-in um
Well,
back knowledge.
well, that's what I mean. I think it could work depending upon how it was done.
Well, no, yeah. So, but that's the whole thing about these alternate universe situations
Hmm.
that they can throw in. That gives these Marvel and DC comic book thing. It gives them leeway to do all sorts of experimentation,
Yeah.
but um, and they have done. But the
Hmm.
thing is that now there's so much different stuff going on.
Right.
I can't freaking keep track of it, dude.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Carl Weathers as the Falcon. I can see that.
That's fine, but now this does look like a 70s. This totally.
It
Now,
does.
by the way, out of all the superhero suits that you could wear, I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
that does look 70s. You're absolutely right.
well, yeah, and that suit in real life, that suit, I would love. You know what? It would be great, dude, if Marvel actually did do something like this and
Well,
use that same suit.
yeah,
Yeah, that would be great because it's so freaking. Dude, that's almost at the level of the Michael Jackson zipper
yeah,
cut off sleeve shirt.
yeah, that's true. Then we did that. Clint Eastwood is Nick Fury. Let's see. Let's go play around down here.
That's got to be
And
the worst suit. Mark, I'm sorry. You've shown
yeah,
us all sorts of suits. That's fine. But that suit, and plus it's white, so it's going to get dirty. And it's got those big ruffles of that act as the Falcon
Mhm.
like face. Oh my goodness.
Okay, now we're just getting back into things that he was playing around with. Um, Now, I this is the one that I thought was fun. The X-Men, no, the X-Muppets. You know,
It's really cool.
Fozzie as the Beast. I mean, that would be fun. Cyclops the Frog. I mean,
That's
Meep
awesome.
Meep Netto. Jim Henson Enterprises do this now.
I would watch it.
Wolver Animal. Come on, you guys got to do this now.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
This would be fantastic. You know, I've got to see that. And a lot of this is just his modern take on certain things, and just doing a little bit of playing around. The older stuff, more or less, just kind of learning the AI and how it's done. He didn't really get into the characters until fairly recently, relatively recently. So, yeah, I mean, but what I love about this is it does kind of give you an insight into a few things. But when you talk about our prejudices and our, not just our prejudices, but what we have seen and what we think, um, as far as our nostalgia is concerned, well, like I was talking about Batman, Adam West is Batman. That's what made Batman Batman, was Adam West doing it. And if somebody else came along and did it, it wouldn't be the same. But and that's kind of the point. No, it wouldn't be the same. But would it be better? Would it be worse? And I told you this whole thing opened up a whole bunch of lines of thought for me and made me do a little bit of mental rabbit holing. And there's something that has been in the back of my brain for about a year now that I don't think I've ever asked you, but I've wanted to discuss as a possible topic. And that is, I have a few favorite movies. And there's no doubt that you have a few favorite movies. And as well as I do, that Hollywood here lately, especially, has a penchant for revisualizing and remaking and
Yeah.
updating movies.
Yeah.
Are there any movies on your list that you really, really, really hope Hollywood just doesn't touch? Just leave it alone. Please don't remake this movie. It's perfect as it is. Leave it alone.
Everything they've done, just almost everything they've done with Marvel, except the side roads.
Hmm.
They could do more of the side roads, but the main thrust stuff, I don't need to see Spider-Man being or Peter Parker being bit by another spider. I get what's going to happen. I don't need another kryptonite situation. I already been there, done that. I mean, how many times already? I
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Not necessary at all. I look at the Spider-Man covers now of the movies, and I'm like, it's like there's no surprise in there.
You're right. Well, I meant just because the movie that is already out there is good, leave it alone. Don't mess with it.
I can tell you one. Um, if I could remember the name of it, there was a series that came out in the early 2000s, I think it was,
Mhm.
and it was a vampire action movie. There were three of them that finally came out, and if I could tell you what they are, it was a lady that was a vampire with guns in a tight suit. Um,
Vampira, Vampirella.
no, no, no. I can't even think of it, so I
Okay.
shouldn't have brought it up. But
Well, like for instance, they remade Ghostbusters,
mhm.
and that was met with a lot of. Some people took it okay, fine. They didn't have any kind of connection to the original, but there was a lot of outrage from people who loved the original. They just said, "Don't don't mess with these. You don't have a list of movies. I hope they don't touch. I just leave it alone. It's fine. You don't need to reimagine it. You don't need to remake it. Leave it alone. It's fine."
I don't know. I think that you know what? I can't answer. I mean, I can't answer that, but um, do you remember that movie called Sabrina? I think it was.
Yeah,
The original one was with not Cagney, um what's this guy's name?
was that Harrison Ford?
No, that's the newer version.
Okay.
Talking about the original version with Bogart.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Did you see the original version?
No, I didn't.
Excellent.
Hmm.
Okay, they remade it in the 80s at some point or 90s
Hmm.
with
With
Harrison
Harrison Ford.
Ford.
Yeah.
Excellent movie as well. So that was one where the original and the newer one,
Hmm.
in my opinion, were neck and
Hmm.
neck on par, if not better, the newer one.
Yeah.
Um, so that's just as an aside. But things like it's just the problem is exactly what you were pointing out with the photos. When
Hmm.
you're saying that, it forces one to choose according to former experience already registered in the brain. So to me, the Matrix movie should always be Keanu Reeves the way it
Yeah.
was.
Just leave it alone.
Star Wars, leave it
Hmm.
alone.
Yep. I'm with you there. And in fact, I think of the original three, George Lucas has already messed them up by adding some CGI that was not up to snuff. Leave it alone, George. Don't touch it. Disney, keep your fingers off of it. Don't try to retouch and make it look better. Leave it alone. After that, you can mess with whatever you want.
Jim, I think Jim was trying to answer which of the
Yes,
vampire movies I was. It's not Midnight Express and it's not Heart of Darkness.
I think he's listing the movies he thinks leave him alone.
Oh, okay, okay.
Midnight Express was about a man who was arrested for drug smuggling and kept in a Turkish prison and eventually escaped from that prison. A very intense movie.
Um, I don't want to see any of them remade. Nothing.
Mm.
Make new stuff.
Well, I'm in agreement with that on general terms. Overall, in general, I'm in agreement with that. But even when you say make new stuff, a lot of the movies that we know and love today are remakes of old stories. You know, a lot of them are Shakespeare. West Side Story is a remake of Romeo and Juliet. There have been several remakes of Romeo and Juliet set in a more modern times. The Lion King is Hamlet. There have been a lot of remakes of Hamlet set in different times and now with different characters. But I agree with you overall in general. We talked about American Graffiti earlier. There have been other coming of age teenager movies that involved car culture and hanging out and cruising up and down the strip on Saturday night and what have you. But none of them have tried to be a direct remake of American Graffiti. That's one of the movies I think they should leave alone and don't try to reimagine it. It's a great body of work as it is. Don't mess with it. You know.
I did like the remake of Bram Stoker's um,
Dracula.
Dracula
Yes.
back in the 90s, I think it was.
Uh-huh. And
With
Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein as well.
I didn't see that one.
Oh, very good. Very good flick.
You know what I did like a lot that got really crappy, as far as I know, reviews?
Hmm.
The Munsters, as envisioned by what's this rock and roll star that's a director as well. He's into horror stuff. White Rob Zombie. Um,
Rob Zombie. I never saw that.
so Rob Zombie used to be in a band called White Zombie,
Hmm.
and it's all horror themed.
Hmm.
And he wrote a few movies and directed a few movies um, that were sort of in the theme of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Hmm.
sort of vibe, but very unique. Pretty horrific stuff, but really well done. And then just a year or two ago, he did a remake of the Munsters in color
Hmm.
for Halloween for Netflix, I think it was,
Yeah.
and it got crappy reviews. And this, I totally got it for
Yeah.
me from beginning to end. What he did with that and the story,
Hmm.
where it was campy and yet like the whole. I actually put it up there as a favorite as far
Hmm.
as how it rolls out.
Hmm.
Super well done. The very trippy, very psychedelic, very 60s, but brought into color.
Uh-huh.
And he uses neons and all sorts of stuff. And he really captures an essence there of the monsters
Hmm.
that for some reason a lot of people misunderstood. But in my opinion, honestly, it was brilliant.
Hmm.
And you just have to see it to know. But I mean, people didn't pick up on it under the sense it was.
Well, a lot of people do still have that attachment um, to that sense of nostalgia that we have. Like I'm talking about Adam West and somebody else replacing him as Batman and what have you. I didn't even get into all the actors that have played Batman in the movies because I know that's a different thing. The movies were had nothing to do with that 70s TV show. They could remake the Green Hornet and it would be nothing like the TV series.
Yeah,
You know, I think it's when they try to make it like the TV series that I think you're trying to do you're trying too hard. Like we went through that whole big thing a few years back about, well, they did the Flintstones movie, then they did with live actors, then they did redid the Beverly Hillbillies, and it's just like, okay, stop it, guys. It's not working. you
they're
know
trying to cash in on a
yes.
known, you know.
Yeah, and that's why there's 62 different episodes in Star Wars that have absolutely nothing to do with the original three movies.
Yeah, and they're not that great in my opinion, but
But they're
like
trying to cash in on that franchise name. And
you,
some of them could be good movies that could stand on their own without needing that Star Wars thing.
I don't know. I don't
I don't,
I don't dig it.
well,
But that's my personal take on it. Someone else might, but just because I have the reference original,
mhm,
and even though the graphics weren't as cool,
mhm.
but the magic was there. But maybe the magic was there because I was there at the time I was,
Yeah, I think
which
that's
is
part
what
of it.
what we've been hinting at as far as like alternate universes and this and that.
Well, there's 14-year age difference between you and I. And that magic that you felt when you first went to go see Star Wars, I don't know
Yeah.
how old you were.
It came out in '78, so I would have seen it when I was that young, maybe a year later whatever that time frame. It was within a year or two or three of it coming out.
I saw it. It came out in '77. I was 16 years old, and I took me and two friends went and saw it at the drive-in. And that magic that you felt, I was 16. I felt it too, because nobody had seen anything like that before. It just totally blew us away from the opening shot. It just totally blew us away. We had no idea what we were watching, but we loved every damn second of it. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that's one of those things. And we have that connection to it. So to try to remake it with today's stars and today's CGI, don't mess with it. Disney, leave it alone. There are just some movies like that. Casablanca. I can't picture anybody but Bogart in that role. Leave it alone. You know, um, um, oh my God, I can't think of the name. Gone with the Wind. Leave it alone. That's supposed to be Clark Gable. Don't touch it. Heck, The Princess Bride. Now, you may not have any attachment to it. You did finally see it after Doc and I, Steve and I basically ganged up on you.
yeah.
But that is one they need to leave it alone. Don't try to remake it. Don't try to re envision it.
Kind of like Blazing Saddles.
But yes, Young Frankenstein, leave it alone. So now, having said that, we kind of alluded to it a minute ago. Do you think there are any franchises that just need to stop? I
No,
think
well,
we both agree that Star Wars has kind of run its course. Just stop it.
um, no. I mean, for my personal taste,
Mhm.
it's unfortunate because my expectations. I like the X-Men stuff and the Wolverine stuff, but I don't know, man. It's I can't picture one in my mind that should stop necessarily because I would just not watch it. I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't see it now. I will say, as a variation on the thing that you're asking, with the advent of like with the Ghostbusters, women playing the men,
Mhm.
it's not so much the women playing the men; it's that the reference points, and plus they said I didn't watch the movie, but they said it was horrible. Um, with the ladies playing,
Mhm.
um, it has nothing to do. I think it has to do with reference point. I don't think that stuff like that, like it's neither here nor there that they do whatever the hell they want. The original was pretty darn special, but then again, I was there at the time when it came out and it was
Mhm.
a thing. But today they're doing things like, aside from gender, they're going and changing like the Little Mermaid
Yeah.
has an African origin as opposed to as far as appearance and this and
Mhm.
that. Or the Roman, what was it? Cleopatra
Mhm.
and stuff. I don't take issue with that juxtaposition or that switch around in itself. They did that with Nick Fury.
Uh-huh. Yeah. If they do a good job, that's what it comes down to with me.
Yeah.
I alluded to it earlier. Jason Momoa playing Aquaman. That movie caught a lot of crap, but I think that was more of a MCU versus DC kind of thing because Aquaman was never as popular as Batman or Superman was.
No, he wasn't, but but he in the comics, he was more nuanced than what
Yeah,
Momoa is.
but I still think Momoa did a good job. So I didn't have a problem with Jason Momoa playing Aquaman. I really didn't.
No, no,
Um,
it looks
mhm.
like a good alternate from what we
Yeah,
would see in the comic books, but just it's
and and
horrible stuff.
and Samuel L. Jackson. I don't care what the comic books say. He is Nick Fury.
No,
I mean, he was perfect for that.
they have Marvel Comics has always been open in that regard, where they and it's gotten more so. But there's various versions of Nick Fury depending on which
Right.
timeline,
Right.
and they did the same for Spider-Man. There's a Hispanic Spider-Man
Yeah.
they call Miles Morales.
Yeah. And I have zero issue with that.
The Miles Morales Spider-Man has become
Mhm.
as popular as the Peter Parker
Yeah.
for kids today. His circumstances um have the similar thing as Peter Parker,
Mhm.
but it's an alternate universe, and then it has things that Hispanic family growing up or
Mhm.
living in New York would have and such and this and that. And so they throw that content. So there's all these things. Um,
But
I
I
don't
think
take issue with it
I don't
necessarily
either.
unless it's forced for a preconceived idea. Then I don't
Well,
like it
and
at
that's
all.
what I mean. As long as they do a good job, as long as it's a convincing performance and you can get into it and get on board with it,
The
you know?
Cleopatra one I tried to watch,
Hmm.
and which is on Netflix still, I believe. And I honestly tried to sit through. I said, you know what? Everybody's ragging on it. I'm gonna be big about this. I'm gonna check it out because I do like, you
Hmm.
know, history and Egyptian history and that.
Docudramas and things, sure.
So I said, screw it. I'm gonna check this out. And so I watched, and I couldn't get past like 15, 20 minutes into it, dude, because it seemed. It's just my perception of it. It seemed forced
Hmm.
for a, and maybe I'm primed to have that notion due to our
Hmm.
cultural political situation, but it felt forced, and I just didn't think it was that good, even
Hmm.
though the settings were pretty good, and I had to shut it down, dude.
And
I shut.
that's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. They didn't do a good job, and it doesn't have anything to do. A prime example of this: it could be the best person for the part. It could be the best part. It could be the best role in the world. But if it's done wrong, it's crap. Case in point, my evidence is the Indiana Jones series. The first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, fabulous movie. Excellent movie. It's in one of my top fives. The second one, the Temple of Doom, was a
Was not
steaming
good.
pile of dog crap.
Yeah, it was not good.
It was bad. I
Yeah,
mean, it was really bad.
yeah.
Had nothing to do with Harrison Ford. It had nothing to do with the Indiana Jones character. He did what you would expect Indiana Jones to do. It was a bad script. It was a bad movie.
My father
Then they
used to
read,
love.
yeah.
My old man used to love the. I mean, he would physically laugh,
Mhm.
like giggle with joy, with the scene where the big hulking guy was beating him up with the
Mhm.
plane circling
Yeah,
unmanned,
in the first movie, yeah.
and he's gonna beat hell out of Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones, or I think it's that, yeah, and he turns around, whatever the scene was where he pulls out the gun, like the
Oh, that
old
was
kid. No,
the big sword, yeah, the
okay, yeah,
scimitar,
yeah, I
yeah.
remember now. It was the guy with the turban and whatnot. He pulls
Mhm.
out the swords and he's doing all this stuff, and you're like, and it's like a shocking thing because this is
Mhm.
what I have to confront.
Everybody jumps back.
But then Indiana Jones says, "I'm gonna skip the drama,
I'm
and
too tired of this.
I'm gonna, shoot one at him, and that's it." And that concept, for some reason, my father, like, you have the spectacle occurring in front of
Mhm.
you, and Indiana just says, "No, thank you." Bam, and it's that. And so, and I always remember that because I remember his giggle when we were there watching it.
I saw that in the theater when it came out with a friend of mine, and the whole audience lost it on that scene. I
Yeah,
mean, the whole theater.
it's so classic.
We like missed the next 3 minutes of the dialogue because people were talking and mumbling and still laughing about it and everything else. The whole crowd just lost it. And that was unscripted.
Was it?
that was there was supposed to be this long drawn out duel and what have you. And Harrison Ford, they were filming, I want to say in Tunisia, but I could be wrong. They were filming on location for that. And he had a kind of a case of dysentery going. And he wasn't feeling up to snuff that day. And he just did it as a joke. And the dude stayed in character for it. He
That's awesome.
fell back just as part of the joke.
Yeah,
And the
and it worked.
director thought it was absolutely freaking hilarious and they kept it.
It's one of the classic movie moments,
Mm-hmm.
and it says a lot too, because it's sort of like, and you could beat a dead horse with it, but I think it is worth saying. The concept across history has been this sense of honor, that
Mm-hmm.
if your competition comes at you with fists, you meet him likewise. If they come at you with you know kitchen knives, like, or whatever. But this threw that out the door,
Yeah.
saying,
That's a 20th century tradition of don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
yeah, it's so fantastic in its simplicity, yet everything,
Yeah.
yeah,
But then they redeemed themselves with The Last Crusade with Sean
yeah.
Connery.
It was an
That
excellent
was
movie.
a good flick.
Yeah, back to back, awesome.
So you don't even have to change the actor. Sometimes it's the reimagining, and sometimes it's the script, it's the direction, it's the premise. But I'm sorry, but number two was a dog crap movie. The
I
Crystal Skull, I think they jumped the shark, you
Yeah,
know?
it goes from. I mean, I like the beginning with the atomic bomb
Hmm.
and sitting inside the fridge and whatnot.
Hmm.
All that's cool, but the alien
Yeah,
angle,
that just really, it's, come on, you lost me. I
it was
haven't
a
seen
little
the,
rich.
I haven't seen the newest one, you know.
I've seen clips and whatever, but it just, the first one and the third one, like you said.
Mhm.
Oh, and I will say that this is one of the things that I've concluded, because I brought up
Mhm.
switching the actress and something feeling
Mhm.
forced just because of a political, social premise and stuff.
Mhm.
If it's not for the art of it, for the context of making it good, and but it has that extra layer where they're trying to bring in some sort of thing, um, it's a little bit of a turn off, I have to admit. But I will, to be fair, across the board, and I told you this before, but if it, because people don't like the fact that a Cleopatra is being played by another ethnicity and such and this and that, and they've made their voices heard, and there's always room
Yeah.
for all sorts of voices, but um, if, and this is to those people, if that's the case, they're disturbed of that, and I understand in terms of, but for my purposes, it's in terms of, it's just not any good.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It's,
Yeah.
and they're forcing something in. But aside from that, if these people are on about this, for any other reason, the context being, oh well, this should be played by this person because they look this way. If you take that to its final conclusion, and you wanted to be fair across the board, like I've mentioned before, you'd have people, any Roman movie we've ever seen in our lifetime,
Mhm.
they should be speaking Italian or Latin. And if you want to stretch it, they can speak Italian, which is still not going to do any good for us. And they should be Italian people
Mhm.
playing those roles. It shouldn't be a person speaking proper King's English from somewhere in who knows where in the UK, or any other place. It should be,
Yeah.
if we're gonna go specific to what it is, we have to be specific to what it is. Then
Well,
that's what it should be.
not only that, but we have to be correct.
We have to what?
We have to be correct as far as the facts are concerned, you know.
Right, and
So,
and
and
so
and
then
I
you have
think that's
that.
what you're saying. I think that's what you're saying, you know.
Well, it's a movie. We're accustomed
Mhm.
to certain varieties it played from certain roles that will allow in terms of our
Sure.
believability in terms of that.
Mhm.
So like we suspend disbelief for the purpose of watching the
Yeah,
dark
we
movie.
we do have to suspend disbelief a little bit. I mean, you know,
But there's a threshold where the majority of people stop wanting to now at this point drop disbelief in order to enjoy the thing.
well,
There is that involved,
they're especially if they feel like they're being preached at.
and right, and but there's also other reasons for it.
Mhm.
There's that,
Mhm.
but according to the endless amounts of comments that I've seen over that
Yeah.
subject, the tone and direction that they've gone
Yeah.
speaks other things.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
And that's really got to go away.
but there's a threshold, anyways, regardless
Mhm.
of where people will say, I can suspend disbelief to this degree,
Well,
but
yeah.
then there's a drop off point when there is this thing that's forced or perceived as forced
Right.
because, people need to engage the movie and just drop into it and whatnot. And if they can't do that, but we do have preconceived stuff. We won't question Roman soldiers speaking English,
Yeah. Or German soldiers speaking English during World War II, if
right?
you want to be more
Because
modern,
exactly, but
because it's being made for us to understand.
we need that.
Hmm.
However, in context, for the people that mentioned certain comments, if they wanted the world to be so cut and dry as they suggest, and I'm just
Hmm.
speaking broadly, then they would have to go the long distance, the mile. But at that point, if you're so rigid, speaking of these certain people, with these notions, then what ends up happening is that we can no longer enjoy
Right.
the things that actually we enjoy. There's a little bit of a switch off there.
Yeah.
People don't realize how much is altered to fit their perspective.
Exactly. And that's an excellent point. A lot of it is altered just for convenience, amongst other reasons.
But
Um,
the person receiving all this benefit of the
mhm.
things we do in culture when it comes
Mhm.
to entertainment, we, in a general sense, some yes, some no, but there's a truckload of people
Mhm.
that don't realize how much is funneled and catered so that the experience from other backgrounds and whatnot, but it's molded to allow the person to enjoy the movie, but it is altered. But those same people think, well, this is a travesty to history when it's just a movie. But if they're
Yeah,
going to be
just
that,
lighten up.
they should just lighten up. If they're going to be that rigid and with those conclusions, then they should go the mile. But if we did that, like in other words, their
They wouldn't
position,
understand it. Yeah.
right, right, it's an impossible. Now, I happen to fall in the camp of I didn't appreciate much like the Cleopatra one because it felt exactly that. It felt like, oh well,
They're
I
just
mean, come
forced.
on,
It's forced in their preaching.
right? And so and so it's like I dropped off from it because I
Mhm.
just couldn't get into it. Um, but there were all sorts of people in Egypt, according to whatever.
Sure.
It's just that there's these things that we measure things with, and it's a difficult thing when it comes to entertainment, at least.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, but you have to suspend disbelief. If you're willing to accept certain other things, you have to accept everything. I'll give you an example. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I don't hang on every word he says, but he makes a few good points. And he was being interviewed one time. I don't remember on what show it was, but he says he loves it and hates it when people try to get nitpicky with him about entertainment these days. He says, I'll give you an example. People ask him, don't you ever get annoyed If you're watching some science fiction movie and they shoot at another ship with a laser and there's a big loud explosion, and you know explosions don't make any noise in the vacuum of space and they don't have that big flaming fireball.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, no, it doesn't bother me. I've already accepted there's a talking raccoon. And that talking raccoon is flying a spaceship. And that talking raccoon is speaking perfect English that everybody in the theater can understand. And he's not only flying that spaceship, he's shooting the laser that just hit that other ship that exploded in space. So if I can accept all of those other things, I can accept noise in space.
Then again, I don't know if you were in the center of the explosion,
Mhm.
there would be the vibration and chemicals that are created from the explosion from that point in the center of an explosion. I'm kind of assuming that you would hear because it's creating an event, an explosion event, and if you were in it, if you place a speaker in it, I don't know if this is true, but I think that you would pick up sound.
I
Um,
I don't think you would, simply because you're in it. And I think the same would be true here on Earth. You're in the explosion. It happens so fast. I don't know that your brain would register anything happened at all
no,
because you
but you
would
can
cease to
record.
be.
But you can record. So, for instance, how do radio waves travel in
Okay,
space?
someone else would hear it, but you in that explosion, I doubt you would hear a thing.
Right, but this is my question: if radio waves travel through space, and yet there's no sound in space,
Because there's no sound in a vacuum.
but radio waves travel through it.
Radio waves are not sound waves. Sound waves need something to bounce off to propagate. Radio waves don't. In fact, they prefer radio waves. If there's anything there for it to bounce off of, it scatters.
I don't know. There's something I don't know enough about it, but it seems like radio waves carry sound.
Radio waves carry radiation. Now, radiation is it's a radio frequency radiation, and that is basically received and decoded by the receiver. All life, all of life creates radio waves, creates RF radiation. You create RF radiation just by virtue of being alive. Every tree, every blade of grass, there is a level of RF radiation, and we can pick it up. We can detect it. We can actually tune, and we can tune into it, and we can hear it. It just sounds like bzzz, but each individual frequency identifies something else. You put out a certain frequency that the tree next to your house doesn't put out. It puts out its own frequency. So
So it has
we
nothing to do with sound per se.
no doesn't have
Sound waves.
anything
It's
to
just
do
the
with
radiation.
sound per se. It's just the radiation exactly.
Okay, fair enough. So my going back to the thing again, I don't know any of this. I'm just brainstorming it or assuming what
Mhm.
if this is true or not. I don't know. But if you're close to the explosion in space,
Now you might feel a concussion.
well, no, let me just say the whole thing. The explosion in that area, the gases, that oxygen in that area, within the confines of that area, I'm imagining that there's sound there. Maybe not anywhere outside of it, or but as within that chemical reaction, there would be sound. So the reason and this is me thinking without knowing, in a movie that shows explode, if it were true what I'm saying, and I don't know that
Mhm.
it is, in a movie that shows an explosion of a Death Star or this or that, from the perspective of within the gases where oxygen and there could be bounce off of that,
Mhm.
sound, then it would be possible to have sound in that context. Maybe not for the,
In that maybe in that particular location, but the sound would not carry through space to get to the ship where the quote unquote camera is, you know.
right. I get that part. But since we, as the audience, are sitting in the movie theater, we're just seeing the events. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how I would work it
Well,
out to make it so that the sound that's there is there. But I don't know that that's even
but
true.
but again, you're talking about a talking raccoon who speaks perfect English so we can understand it, who can fly a spaceship and who can shoot that laser. We can accept all of that, but we can't accept sound in space, you know?
Yeah, you have to
See,
just
you have to suspend. If I'm willing
you
to
have to.
suspend disbelief for the first four, then I'm willing to suspend disbelief for that last one.
Well, we have
So,
to because if
yeah,
not,
yeah.
there's nothing, virtually nothing science
Mhm.
fiction is available to us.
Exactly.
For goodness sakes.
Okay. All right. You think it's about time to land the plane?
Um, well, I wanted to mention
Okay.
one bit. I ran across, just to share with you, I ran across a video. So there's a channel, and this guy has like 2,000 viewers
Hmm.
or subscribers, and he produced an hour and a half long extravaganza of how, totally random, of how the Nintendo Link's Legend of Zelda was created, the game cartridge,
Hmm.
the history of how this product reached the shelves, and the reaction that the public at large had in the United States and in Japan, and the way this small channel produced this video was nostalgia. I didn't know the different bits that he talked about,
Hmm.
but the topic I was familiar with because I was bought that when it first came out. I played it, and I was the same, one of the many kids that was totally into that one. Um, and his production and intricacy over the subject and the way it was masterful, dude. And I'm just bringing it up that there's a lot of people out there with just and you know that amazing content. They may or may not have the views
Hmm.
to rival what they're doing, but just to tie everything up, um the video was about the creation of a video game.
Okay.
And to go back to AI, when I saw that page that I shared with you, one of the thoughts that I had was, in context with everything we've seen coming out, it's going to get to a point I could see
Hmm.
where, as opposed to you hitching a ride with the creation of other people, I can
Yeah.
foresee a moment where, let's say, you're sitting at home and you say, you know what, and you talk to the I want you to create for me for this evening's movie watching experience. I want a movie about the Old West. I want it to include the OK Corral, but I want a alternate scene in this town over here in wherever, and I want it set in this type of cinematic um, film noir or whatever
Hmm.
vibe, and I want this type of dialect, and oh, and I want this character. And I can foresee a future where we direct the orchestra.
I can too. I can as well. We can do some of that, but it's still in its infancy. Um, I think the potential is there in the coming years. You see how the music industry has changed over the last just 10 years, where we went from everybody going out and buying CDs to downloading music onto our iPods to now we're just there's a couple of streaming services we listen to and we can put various songs on our playlists
Yeah, and you
and
don't
we
even
don't
need
have
that.
to purchase anything really.
Right. There's the whole purchasing of music and stuff.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with music has
Hmm.
really um left the building, let's say.
Right. So the music industry is irreversibly changed.
Yeah.
There are some small little pockets that are still the same. I mean, vinyl is coming back, but it's never going to be the driving force for music that it was when we were growing up. You know, radio is dying, it is shrinking really, really rapidly. And it's not ever going to be the driving force in music that it was when we were growing up. I can foresee a future where the movie industry goes through that same revolution. Because if you can plug in certain actors, you want to play certain characters, like we were demonstrating earlier today, I can foresee Mr. Bean playing Superman in somebody's imagination, coming up with a script and coming up with a premise where Mr. Bean would be the perfect anti hero.
You can even ask AI to create the script for you.
Yeah. So I can foresee a future where the movie industry starts to struggle and people are creating their own entertainment, or
Yeah.
guys like you and me who have the technology, who have the ability, and who have the kind of imagination to put something like that together and then throw it up on YouTube on a monetized channel. And now, when someone like you or me wants to go watch Batman tonight, we can go watch, Groucho Marx as Batman,
Yeah.
if that, is something that we want to see.
It looks like it's going in that direction, and other things that we can't even imagine.
Hmm.
But all right.
Yeah,
I'm
I
I'm I'm
mean, some
I'm
wild stuff. And you are not going to believe this, but it took me all of about 6 minutes to find that video. It's a conversation with my 12-year-old self, is what it's called. And I will link it on our Trampled Underfoot podcast Facebook page as soon as we're done here. It was made 11 years ago and it has 34 million views.
all
So
right.
it's actually very cool.
All right. Well, it's time to land the plane. We go live every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time. Here at the Trampled Underfoot podcast show on YouTube, we have a site on Facebook by the same name and a website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And we're also sponsored by.
Harneal Media. I'm behind in bringing the banners up and putting them all in place, but you get the message. Harneo Media, that's the only thing, that's the main takeaway from this. You need to go hit up Harneo Media. Why? I don't need to do anything. Yeah, you do. Trust me, because I know you want a website. You know you want a website. Your next door neighbor knows you want a website. Heck, they want a website too. Talk to Steve at Harneo Media. He's your friend. You know him. You love him. He's here every week. Go hit him up. Go talk to him. Head over to harneilmedia.com, hit that contact us button, and tell Steve what you're looking for. Are you looking for just a vlog site where you can maybe throw up your favorite recipes that your grandmother left you and put it out there for the public to see? Or maybe you just want to document a trip you just took. He can hook you up with that. Let's say you want to bring e-commerce into this. You want a web store. You want to offer your goods or services or both to the public at large. There's no better way to do it than with your own website. And there's no better person to refer you to than Steve over at Harneil Media. You'll find a link to Harneil Media in every single video and live stream posted to this channel. And it's that way for a reason. Get a hold of him. You know you want to. He's our friend, Steve at harneilmedia.com. That's HARNEAL media.com, sponsor of the Trampled Underfoot podcast.com.
All right. All right, guys. Well, enjoy. We usually say enjoy the rest of your week, but it's the weekend, so enjoy the weekend and be safe. Do the things you love, and we'll catch you here next Tuesday.
Later. Later. Or sooner.